Do you like the look of ceramic jewelry and wished you could make this with polymer clay? In this tutorial, I'll show you how to create a beautiful faux ceramic effect, and this is one of my ceramic techniques that people love the most, and I'm very excited to share this with you. Hi, I'm Michaela from Learn Polymer Clay, and let's dive in. I decided to use a mixture of white polymer clay and translucent polymer clay because I thought this might help with the faux ceramic effect. I have properly conditioned the polymer clay, and I passed the clay through the setting number 3 of my Atlas pasta machine, and in fact I prepared 2 sheets of polymer clay, one for the front and one for the back. You could pass the clay through the setting number 4 of your pasta machine if you want thinner pieces of polymer clay. And then I have prepared a stencil with the smaller and larger round openings, and I'm going to use mica powders in bright colorful shades to partially color some of the round openings. For the smaller ones I used one color, but for the larger openings I've used two colors, and in some areas these colors blended. And so I've used yellow mica powder, orange, reddish mica powder, blue, green, and I'm also going to use orange mica powder. And I'm just coloring some of these spots in a random fashion. And as you can see, I'm using a stencil that has larger openings and smaller openings. And in some areas I applied two colors on top of the other, like the yellow and the orange. I prefer using my fingers when coloring my clay pieces with mica powders, but as you can see, sometimes I have a lot of waste powder, so you might want to use an applicator. I recommend you to keep baby wipes near because you need them to clean your fingers in between colors. And then I took off the stencil and I placed it in a different manner, and then I am going to apply colors on top of the first areas colored with mica powders for an interesting overlaying effect. And I personally like playing with overlaying stencils, putting one on top of the other stencils and seal screens, and you get a very beautiful effect. Of course, I used baby wipes to gently clean the stencil, and then I'm going to use a bamboo stamp, and I'm also using black chalk ink and an ink pad, and I'm going to impress a beautiful bamboo, and I'm also pressing on top of the stamp, which is going to result in some embossed areas. And so this is going to be the front of the beads, and for the back I have, as I said, prepared a second sheet of polymer clay, and then I use the same stamp with some of the ink remaining, and I'm going to flip this sheet of polymer clay, and I'm going to apply the colorful clay slab on top of the sheet that I intend to use for the back. And you can use baking paper to gently press these two sheets of polymer clay together, and then you'll just have to decide which shapes you would like for your clay pieces. And of course you can cut your shapes freehand, you can use paper templates, or you can use cutters. And for these designs I decided to use different shapes of cutters, and I'm using this larger cutters to make beads for a pair of earrings. And then I have also used other shapes with other cutters with interesting shapes to make more beads. And I'm going to assemble these into interesting components with metal elements. And of course you can turn this into earrings or pendants. And I'm trying to get the most of this polymer clay slab. And of course you'll have to take the time and smooth off the edges of the clay pieces, and I personally prefer to take the time to smooth off the edges and make sure that I have a nice clean edges, so I won't have to wet sand these pieces after baking them. And when you are happy with the look of your pieces, you can put them in the oven. And normally I bake my pieces on baking paper because I've made the front and the back in the same time. And I also tint my pieces, meaning I'm putting sometimes an aluminum foil on top like a tent. Sometimes I'm using an aluminum disposable pan, but anyway I want to protect these pieces from direct heat. And I baked my pieces for 45 minutes in the preheated oven, and then I let the clay cool down in the oven. And then I decided to apply UV resin for the beautiful faux ceramic effect. I'm applying the resin straight out from the bottle because I'm applying a generous amount of UV resin. I also recommend you to check the margins before curing the resin with the UV lamp. I've noticed after curing the pieces that in some areas I should have added a little bit more UV resin. And also I recommend you to use a heat gun or a torch to remove any air bubbles. And then you'll just have to use a UV lamp. I'm using a fast drying UV lamp, and so I cure the resin for 2 consecutive minutes. Of course, when working with resin, it is recommended to protect your hands with gloves, to work in well ventilated areas. And then I've just used a hand drilling tool to poke holes in order to be able to assemble these pieces into earrings or beautiful components that you can use as pendants or as part of interesting neck pieces. And normally I'm drilling from one side to the other side. Sometimes I start on the front, sometimes I start on the back, but anyway I will drill from one side, from let's say front to back, and then I would drill again from the other side as well. And then I just used my jewelry pliers and jump rings to assemble these beautiful components into earrings. I've also attached a stud earring component to beautifully finish these pieces into polymer clay earrings. If this technique was helpful, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear how you would use this faux ceramic effect in your own jewelry. Don't forget to subscribe. If you like this clay tutorial, here's what to watch next. Thank you.